Awesome. We are live. My video is looks a little grainy. I don't know if I can fix that. I don't know how to fix that. Well, um, thank you for joining me. My name is Amelie, or I go by Copper Bear, or just Copper. I'm really excited for today. It's episode 4, and we are going to talk about scarcity and how that appears, what that looks like. And so I'm hoping that this is going to be a really fruitful conversation for everyone who listens. I think it's just something that has come up in the last few months as I've been kind of journeying inward. I had an experience in Hawaii where um, it was just almost out of body experience. And so I'm hoping that my share of what I kind of learned from that experience is going to help you guys. So, with that said, I called this the wolf moon in scarcity. So tomorrow is the wolf moon, which is like every month there's 13 moons in a year, and every month there's something that it's called. And typically, Barbara, she joined me. Yeah, so typically, every moon has like a name. So like in April, it's like or in May, it's like a flower moon or something like that. And in October, it's the hunter's moon. And so you have these different moons for kind of the northern hemisphere things that are going on, like a salmon moon or whatever. It means that the salmon are spawning. And so it was just a kind of a reminder for people. Um, and so I thought it was really interesting when I was like, okay, I really think I want to have it be about scarcity. I think that'll be a good topic to talk about. Um, and we'll just kind of talk about a little bit of everything that people will experience scarcity with. And we'll go over maybe some of the symptoms of what that might look like in your life where you're experiencing scarcity. And, I don't think anybody is. Um, is not going to experience that. And so we'll kind of talk about how that spiritually lines up with you and some of the revelations I've experienced. And maybe some of the chat will chime in with some cool stories of maybe how they see that in their life. And we can kind of develop that as we go along. So the wolf moon, why do they call it that? So the wolf moon is a time. I had some information. See if I can pull it up. What up, Bonafide? Whoop. Let's see if I can find it here. I had a really good. So this is called the outdoor apothecary. It just kind of had a little bit more information than the rest of the things that I was looking at. It was like, we don't know why it's called the wolf moon. And I'm like, okay, there's got to be some stuff. So I'm Native American. There's a little bit of understanding, like with the stories and stuff like that. So they associate it with the moon because of the howling wolves. Most of the time in January, you're going to see more, you're going to hear more howling wolves, maybe even coyotes. I don't know. Probably depends on how far north you are. I don't think we really have a lot of wolves in my area, but maybe up in the mountains, especially in the northeastern part of Oregon, there's a lot of wolves and there's a lot of wolf preservation. Um, and so Native Americans believed that the howling of the wolves was more prevalent during this time in January because of food scarcity and hunger. This is also a way, the howling is also a way that they can communicate where their territory is, who their pack members are, where their pack members are, reinforce social bonds, coordinate hunting. So they're using this howl to kind of re-coordinate, resurface, and I think a lot of us um, in the bear community can really sympathize with this because that is something that we kind of experienced over this quarantine time of we all had shared common interests, we had shared common goals, and so it was almost like there was a scarcity of community, and so we were really like howling, where are we going to find this community? And community is super important when you kind of consider that we are all um, like especially in the Bible, we're referred to as sheep. Um, all of us are referred to as sheep, being shepherded by the great shepherd or the good shepherd, however you want to say that, which is Yeshua, Jesus. And because we're in that, we almost have to have this community of people because we are identified as sheep, and we really need each other to kind of grow and find safety. And it's just a natural thing. So governments are instituted because we have this desire, or this natural inner desire to have a community of people, have a connection, have a same shared vision, shared goal. So us in the United States, we have the Constitution, and so that Constitution is the law of the land, and so we have that defines how we operate day to day. Um, so, with that said, we'll kind of go over some of the things as we get into scarcity. So, I, the full moon is tomorrow, but today it's still a rather large moon. It's actually it's called a micro moon. I learned you have a micro moon and a super moon. Micro moon is a little bit appears a little bit smaller, but I think all the objects in the sky kind of looks small, and I've been able to see them with the cool night vision goggles where it just kind of like shows everything brilliantly. There's a lot of things going on up in the heavens, so it's always a good mystery, something really fun to kind of consider. And so now let's talk about scarcity. How does this show up? What is scarcity? Scarcity is like this internal lack, or this feeling of lack, or where you don't have enough, where like you don't see it available to you. Scarcity in our time is actually really interesting on how it shows up, because as I'm sitting here and I'm reflecting of, okay, why would I feel scarce? I live in America. America is it seems really abundant. This is a place where people find opportunities. Like, why would I feel like I have some sort of scarcity? And it's almost because we have all this material abundance that we do feel more scarcity. Like we don't have enough because we're not aligning with the other people's stuff. And so you're almost feeling this scarcity because of that, this materialistic scarcity. But it's not always just material. You can feel a connection, like you don't have enough friends, or you don't have anybody to talk to. You don't have family members in your life. These kind of things you kind of see as far as connection, and so you'll kind of feel that feeling of scarcity, like, oh, I'm feeling a little bit rejected. So that rejection is a type of scarcity. Abandonment, that feeling of that fear of abandonment, that might feel as scarcity, just not having that connection. And I think the most prevalent one is like the spiritual feeling of scarcity, where you don't feel spiritually connected, you don't feel spiritually fulfilled. And that is probably one of the most interesting ones, because it is like such a huge thing when you start to really look and think of what people are experiencing, why they're doing that. um, Owen really brought up a cool point the other day when he was talking about um, uh, Mike Tyson, the fighter. He's like, we're all wanting to be in this feeling of worship, and it's almost because we're not worshiping something that is fulfilling, or worshiping something that's unfulfilling, that you feel this lack, or this internal scarcity of that. Um, one of the big ones is financial scarcity. So, financial scarcity is like, I don't have enough money to pay my bills. I don't have enough money to buy this. I don't have enough to do that. And so that will come up as scarcity as well. And that one's a huge one if you don't have money. And then the other one is time. So maybe you are making a lot of money, but you don't have a lot of time to dedicate to your family. You don't have a lot of time to dedicate to your hobbies. So you're feeling this really intense fear of, or this really intense fear of lack of time, or lack of being with your family, because you're spending so much time making money. So these kind of things like show up as scarcity. And um, it was really surprising when I finally realized what that was and how that showed up and where it shows up and it's not the easiest thing to it's not the easiest thing to fix. It's very difficult. It's almost where you're having to really look at, why am I acting this way? Why am I behaving in this way? Why do I feel this way? So we'll talk about like some of the reasons why this shows up. So one of the first things I kind of gathered some stuff of what that looks like from different websites. So one of the things is, oh my gosh, my phone light is still on. Oop. One of the things is growing up in poverty. So growing up in poverty, a lot of people may have grown up in poverty if they're, maybe Gen Xers, the millennials, and then, like I said, because we have so much materialism in America, maybe even some of the Zoomers feel like they didn't. So one good example is, um, you know, people my age right now are collecting all these Pokemon cards, and so these Pokemon cards are like valued really high because the kids, when they were younger, weren't able to get the Pokemon cards that they wanted from their parents. So they feel this really empty feeling inside of, I didn't get what I wanted when I was a kid. Now that I'm older, I'm going to buy that to fill that internal hole that I had from a lack I felt when I was a child. This can show up in any way, and so it's really important that we we kind of identify what poverty is. So poverty could be where you're not getting enough food. So there is people that have this lack of food, lack of shelter, so they're living in their cars or whatever. So you're going to see some of that, and so the scarcity mindset will start to sink in, that you won't kind of get over that. It is really difficult, but we'll talk about how to. Uh, I think identifying it is one of the best ways, but you guys can put your comments in the chat if you want to. Um, so, a lack of whatever, when it starts consuming your thoughts, that's when that scarcity is going to appear. So, it's a lack of Pokemon cards, lack of food, lack of home, lack of car, lack of homestead, like whatever it is, you fill in the blank of whatever that scarcity or that lack or that inadequacy, whatever it is, just fill in the blank, and that is where you can develop feelings or thoughts of scarcity mindset. Some other things is always feeling, so when you're in this scarcity, you're gonna always feel behind. You're gonna feel behind, like, oh my gosh, I'm not doing enough to get to where I want to be. Basically, you're like living in the future, like, if I don't do this, then this is going to happen. And that's a story that you're going to tell yourself. It could be untrue, it could be true. And so feeling behind, like you're not doing enough to get to where you want to go, instead of being really present in where you're at and assuming whatever necessity that you need to get to the next level, you're kind of feeling like, I'm not enough in where I'm at right now. So this can show up as like bills or other responsibilities piling up. So maybe you say, we'll kind of get to that, saying yes to things, and then all of a sudden you have all these. And I do this all the time, and I didn't realize it was coming from a thought of scarcity. And so sometimes I just have to pull back and say no to things for a little bit of time until I can recalibrate myself to be available to whatever my situations are. Um, and that's why I said in the last few months, it's been really apparent that this is a big problem for me that I need to resolve. So bills or other responsibilities pile up, overscheduling yourself. So, like I said, you're just saying yes to everything and the reason why you say yes to everything is because you don't think the opportunity is going to come again. So it's hard for you to say no No, I don't have time for that. No, I don't have the energy for that. No, I don't have whatever the thing is. I don't have the ability to carry that request out. So I'm gonna have to respectfully decline. Instead, you say yes, and then because of that, you're afraid that the opportunity is not going to come again, which is not true. Like opportunities will continue to come, and being loving and really respecting your time and your energy is going to give you even more access to opportunities because it's going to carry you through to whatever the next step is for you. So some of the other feelings are feelings of guilt, anger, and envy. So these will pile up, or they'll like kind of drum up, and so you'll get these feelings like, um, "Oh man, I didn't do this, and so I'm at fault," or "I'm feeling really angry. I'm feeling really envious that that person has these opportunities and I don't. I'm really angry that um, my situation just I never seem to get unstuck. I'm never getting out of this." Yes. So Barbara says, I think my husband is a pack rat because he grew up mostly in scarcity, but he is much better these days. Yeah. So hoarders, like, not saying that your husband is, but just people that you watch that on television. You have these hoarder TV shows. Well, why are they doing that? They have some really deep holes in their heart of like not getting something that they thought that they wanted or needed, and because of that, it shows up in their environment. It's because they're not ready to face that inner lack and just realize that they are in this abundance, that we do have this abundance, and we'll get to that. I'm not going to just say, oh, these are the whole things and not give you like this is a different viewpoint of it. We'll get to that for sure. um Unfulfilling interpersonal relationships. So we talked last episode about emotional intelligence and interpersonal communication and interpersonal relationships and how those are important. And let's see if I have it here. Interpersonal effectiveness, which is possessing tact, diplomacy, interpersonal skills, knowing how to relate and build rapport with people. Maybe you're not because you think that you have these stories about other people that they're getting more than you are, and because of that, you're like, oh, I don't want to be friends with them because they are just showing me what I don't have. Um, and so it kind of gets in the way of those relationships. Lack of motivation. So, lack of motivation to get out of a situation. If you're feeling stuck and um, you don't have the motivation to get out of it, like a lot of the times, especially in the winter time, I have very little energy. My energy is like, I'm hibernating. I'm a bear. I freaking hibernate. And so, my motivation is much lower in the wintertime than it is in the summertime. In the summertime, I'm like, I have a lot more energy. The sun is out, the temperature is higher. And so I have more energy to go out. But the lack of motivation, that will carry on even through those times. So mine is like, the sun's not out a lot. So, I really don't want to do much of anything. But that's like a little bit of self-care, whereas lack of motivation is lack of motivation to do the things that you love. So if you love gardening and it comes time to be gardening and you have time to do that, but you don't have the motivation, you're feeling a lack somewhere that's showing up as not being able to be excited about some things that you do love. Um, Feelings of worthlessness or low self-esteem. We covered that one in the last episode, so I really encourage you, if you didn't watch that one, to kind of go through and listen to that. I know I try to stay under 2 hours, and that one was a little under 2 hours, so it's probably about an hour and a half of going over the keys of emotional intelligence. But self-worth is super important when you're battling the scarcity, because it will show up, and that's how mine showed up. Was I wasn't worth it. I was um going to say yes because I was afraid that I wouldn't get opportunities, um, that because of my past, maybe, my future wasn't worth it. And and I really dialed this in because I've always been working on it, but it does come from, a relationship with my father or lack thereof, and my relationship with God, because those things for me are very much related. And so I've spent a lot of time, um, I know I probably shouldn't, but that's just how I am. A lot of time thinking about how does that show up. And one of the biggest revelations that I had was that I didn't trust God. I don't trust men. I don't trust God to take care of my needs. And that's how my scarcity showed up. And that was a huge revelation for me, that I felt like I was having to judge myself, which is something that we're called not to do. Do not judge lest you be judged. Well, maybe I was judging others and I was judging myself, like probably 10 times even worse than I would judge others. Like other people, I'd be like forgiving and loving and caring. But when it came to me, it was like, nope, you're bad, you're worthless, whatever, just these really negative stories. And so those feelings of worthlessness or feelings of low self-esteem will pop up when you're feeling in that scarcity mindset. And I'm just being super bare honest, like barefaced honest, because like we need to be super truthful about where we're at, because if we don't be honest about those things, then how are we going to grow out of that? So I'm only sharing this. You guys don't have to share about yourself. I just feel comfortable and confident in myself enough to know I can share this with you guys. Um, so the next one is an overall negative view of the world. Like the world isn't going to get better. There's no opportunities in it. There's like this pessimistic mindset. They are going to just ruin everything. So why even try? Everything in the world is just negative, and that is because you're feeling that internally. You're seeing it outwardly. Um, the inability to lose weight, a lot of that, like we talked about the hoarders, a lot of the times they're carrying on some emotions that are very low vibration, so they're trying to fill that with food or materialist things or whatever. And to because of that, they're kind of carrying that. Like I think Owen really had a good stream earlier last year about how he was like, I think that there's something where my emotions are tied to my weight or just the extra weight that I'm carrying. Like you're almost carrying that because you think you have to carry that burden. So that will show up kind of in a physical form. Reliving past trauma. So some people will be in these relationships, and we see it all the time on like daytime talk shows where people will come on and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, I know he beats me, but that I'm sticking with him," or whatever. And they're reliving a trauma because they're feeling like they're not worth being in a relationship that's healthy for them. That this is the best that they'll get. So they're going to stay with it because they're comfortable with it. A lot of people are comfortable with whatever their traumas are. And so overcoming those is sometimes super, super difficult. And so I give so many props to people who are able to face certain traumas that they've had in their life. And sometimes, just based on whatever trauma or whatever situation a person is going through, you can almost see how that plays out on a grand scale of, okay, this is happening. And you can kind of see it in others. And you'll start to see all these patterns of, okay, this is a trauma, like a common trauma that people are experiencing. This is how it's carried out. A lot of this is parental trauma. Maybe parents were abusive. Um, and so you'll see those things kind of pop up. Uh, Maybe parents weren't abusive. Maybe they just weren't available, emotionally available to their children. They weren't available when they needed them. And so sometimes that will show up as a trauma as well. So Barbara says, it took a while for me to learn the word no is not a bad word. Burned out, burnout cured me. Absolutely. Oh, burnout will do that. Like I totally talked about burnout in one of my past streams. Dude, burnout is so intense. I can't tell you how intense it is. It took me 2 years to overcome it. It was so intense. And, bravo to anybody who's made it through burnout and learned the lesson that they need to learn, because that will, like, start to kill you. Um, I was having heart issues at the age 34, and I was like, "What's going on with me?" Like, 34 is very young. I wasn't taking any, um, shots or anything, So, I don't know. It was pretty intense. Burnout is intense. Maybe I'll have a stream about it. So the next one is losing your job, hating your job, or feeling stuck in your job. So if you're going to a job and you hate it, or you just are feeling stuck, like you're never going to get out of it. You're never going to go up to the next level. You're never going to make it um to where you're able to maybe pay some of the stuff that you have. I think this is just me, and you guys can call me crazy if you want. So I was making way more money the last time I was working at my last job. I was making way more money, but I had more debt. Like, it seemed like the more money I made, the more debt I accrued. And so now that I'm back to work and, I have very low debt, I'm really looking at how that is playing out overall. So is my debt, is that connected to this scarcity? Absolutely, I believe so. Um, if if you're not able to save money while you're making quite a bit of money, like uh, more than minimum wage, especially if you're living in a shared housing situation, if you're unable to do that, I would definitely start thinking about, where's the lack here? Where am I spending my money, and why am I spending it there? What are the emotions connected to it? Am I shopping because it feels good to fill my, like, to add to cart and send it and to receive a package? Like, is that really beneficial to me? Um, so really, like, looking at why you're spending money, where you're spending your money, having an inventory, a financial inventory of where those things are coming from. Um, but yeah, you'll feel like you may lose your job, and that will give you a scarcity. Oh my gosh, how am I going to pay my bills? You'll hate your job. Oh, I have to go to work again today. Ugh, I'm going to be here forever. Time is just slowing down, feeling stuck in your job. I can't get out of this. I have no other options. I don't have any other skills. I don't have any other options. I don't have anything. I'm going to have to just ride this out, and it's going to suck. Um, and it really will be. Those are realities that you'll create. I have a few more. So, viewing others as competitors, just kind of looking at everyone else like, oh, they've got this, or they've got that. That person's going to take my opportunity. And so, when you start viewing other people as competitors and not coworkers or friends or your family members, you start to view them as somebody who's going to take from you. That will definitely, that is definitely a feeling of scarcity. Like, you have to have one up over on them because they're going to take your opportunity. Thinking you always lose and others win. We kind of talked about that as kind of viewing others as competitors. I think those are kind of similar. Feeling like you're always behind. I put that one on there twice, but that's, definitely one. Struggling with concentration. So you're unable to concentrate on what you're doing. You're unable to concentrate um, to complete a task. Uh, I struggle with this all the time. I don't know. I kind of feel like I have squirrel brain, which is like, you see one thing and then you see another thing, and I've just always operated like that. So I don't know if that is something that will eventually get corrected, or if it's something that's going to continue um, to be kind of an issue that I deal with. But yeah, definitely struggling with concentration. And I think we kind of covered this in that feelings of worthlessness, low self esteem, but believing you're not enough. So believing that you're not enough, to get into a relationship, believing you're not enough to make whatever you have in your future possible, that you're not enough to do it. So those are some symptoms or some things that you might come across as far as how scarcity comes up. Obviously, there could be more, but I just wanted to cover those things. And we're going to kind of talk about a little bit of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So if anybody's seen this, it's a pyramid where you have the base of the pyramid is a survival. So it's like food, shelter, water, basic needs that you're going to need. And then it goes all the way up into like this acceptance, and it's shaped like a pyramid. Don't want to flash too many signs, but you know. Um, so when you're in a scarcity mindset, it's almost like you're, and it's really funny because I was like, I always feel like I'm in survival mode. And I said that throughout my whole 20s. I always feel like I'm in survival mode. I even told the therapist that. Like, I don't ever feel like I can get out of where I'm at. Like, I just don't feel like I can get out of there. I don't know what's going on. I can't see beyond where I'm at to get outside of that. And so, because I was in that survival mindset, it was, coming up. Like, obviously, I did some cool things like learn how to can, learned how to stretch your food budget. So, I did learn some skills in that to kind of combat some of that, but it also wasn't enough. There was a lot more other things that were going on emotionally, spiritually, mentally that I had to address as well that never really went away until recently when I started really focusing on, okay, why am I feeling this way? Okay, so scarcity is real. Scarcity mindset is real, and one of the things that is like super cool and important to recognize is um, one of the reasons that we're here on this realm is to be fruitful and multiply. And what does that mean? It means you get something, you multiply it. You are fruitful with it. You're frugal with it. You're able to take something that you have, your time, your money, your connections, and you're able to take that and multiply it into something that's beautiful and helps others and is of service to others. So that be fruitful and multiply is not just have babies, right? Like obviously that's one of them. But as I'm learning like seed saving, a seed of one thing is going to it could have it multiplies itself. So one seed turns into 10 seeds, or it can turn into millions of seeds, so like literally millions of seeds. And so that be fruitful and multiply mentality really needs to be at the forefront, as does gratitude. Like gratitude is another one of those things that really should be at the forefront to help combat some of this scarcity. We'll talk about how to shift out of that. How do these things affect our relationships? Your So some of the things that will happen is you'll be physically present. You'll be, say, at the birthday parties. You'll be at the recitals. You'll be at all these events, but emotionally you're absent because you have other things on your mind. You're bringing in certain heaviness into whatever the relationship is. You're bringing insecurities. You can be present in a relationship, like a spousal relationship or just a partnership, whatever it looks like. And because you have insecurities, you're not emotionally present. You're not able to present yourself to your um, significant other, your child, your friend, whoever it is. You can be physically there, but you're not emotionally there. And it's because of all these insecurities that you're not able to be who you truly are, because you're almost hiding behind this mask of what you could be. And then you also have this grass is greener mindset, and um, you may also have high standards of what you think things should be, and because it's not that, you'll be dissatisfied. Jerusha, what up, girl? Great to have you. Um, Jerusha McBear. And so some of these effects in your relationship, because you're not emotionally there, you're going to end up dissatisfied. And, I've seen this happen again and again. Like, people won't address the lack, they won't address this inadequacy that they feel inside. And they'll get into a relationship, and then the relationship goes along, and okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then, like, a year later, 7 years later, they realize, like, oh, this was never satisfying. This was never fulfilling to me to be in this relationship. I got in on this relationship under like false pretenses, or maybe I was dishonest with myself, and now I'm in this relationship with somebody that is not satisfactory. And it's kind of like are you going to get out of it, or are you going to stay in it to resolve whatever the situation is? And that requires a lot of inward work as well. Yeah, I'm gonna try and expand outside of just YouTube, but for now, it'll work. I have to learn how to restream. So, I hope this is sinking in and is helping people to kind of identify, like, where some of the scarcity comes from. Um, and we're going to work to shift out of that scarcity. So, this is where it kind of comes really neat. So, one of the things to help me shift out of scarcity is to think about Psalm 23. And Psalm 23 is, uh, you're having this dinner, like, God is just providing you all these things. He's providing you protection, He's providing you manna or food in front of your enemies. Like, there's just this beautiful tenor, this beautiful vibrance that comes out of Psalm 23. And yeah, and so hopefully I can learn it. You guys are doing awesome over at McKinney Ministries, but um, I'm glad that you enjoy it, Jerusha. I'm glad that people enjoy it. I hope it's really helpful. Anyways, so the Psalm 23, where you're having this table prepared for you in the midst of your enemies, is kind of a cool concept to think about, because um, you're having this, you're being provided for, and so you're getting these provisions given to you, and it's showing you that you have connection, you have abundance in your life. And then the next part of this, as we shift out of the scarcity mindset and we work into where we're feeling this um, acceptance of it is not avoiding or ignoring your feelings. You're validating the feeling of the whatever the scarcity is. Man, I feel really jealous of Fred. Fred's got he's got it all, and I don't. But recognizing, oh, okay, well, Fred does have that. I can accept that. And just because I don't have that doesn't mean that I don't have something that Fred maybe is lacking. Maybe Fred doesn't have something that I have, and that's fine. And letting go of that. So a big theme in my life this past year in 2022 was letting go. Letting go is probably one of the most intense experiences I've ever really consciously had. It was so interesting because as soon as I let go of some of these false stories, these contracts that I thought that I had to be in, and they were just, mental contracts. Oh, okay, this is never going to happen because that person's incapable of doing this. As soon as I let go of those contracts, man, things started coming in, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, God is ready to just pour down some providence on me as soon as, like, I'm ready to let go. And so It's been a long journey. I've been taking a lot of time to really let go of some material things, let go of some mental or soul contract stuff, and let go of those to let these new things in and um, learn new skills, learn new things about myself. Because I really have this goal of connecting to heaven. Like, I really want to be in the kingdom of God and really experience that. And that was something that I was like, that was just happening. That was like, you're going to experience this. Like, spirit is going to like be with you as you're walking through this. But there's these things that you need to let go of. So don't avoid or ignore your feelings. Do validate them. Do sit in them for a little bit. If you're feeling angry, sit in that anger. If you're feeling envious, sit in it. If you're feeling fearful, sit in it for a little while and just kind of let those things come up and then say, okay, yeah, I accept that, but that's not who I am today, and let it go. And I think that like as we start practicing like letting go of these things and not reacting and having more emotional control over how we feel, being able to honor what we're feeling and why we're feeling it, we will be able to overcome them and let them go and have these new beautiful feelings come in, of joy and bliss and this ecstasy that is um, being spiritually fulfilled. Okay. The next part, and I kind of talked about this a little bit, is self compassion. So, not only should we be compassionate to others, but we should be compassionate to ourselves as well. It starts with ourselves. One of the big things, and I shared this on an IG page, somebody had mentioned it in a video, was, you know, one of the biggest persons that I've ever judged was this person. I judge this person the hardest, harder than anybody else. I am so critical of myself, and really learning how to have dialogue about myself where it wasn't like you're worthless, whatever, whatever. No, you have gifts and talents, and you're of value to people, and you provide great services to people. You're gifted in these areas, and maybe you lack in some areas, but you're able to adapt and find people to help teach you or help get those pieces done. And so being a little bit more compassionate with myself, and really honoring the times that I was exhausted. And like, I feel exhausted a lot because I do a lot. So I feel really exhausted. And ever since I burn out, and maybe Barbara, you feel this too, ever since I burn out, um, it does get easier to say no. It does get easier to say, look, I got to step back and take care of myself for a little bit, and just kind of walk in where I can kind of do a lot more self-love, self-preservation of myself. It's okay for me to be like this because alternatively, I was give, 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 give. So like sometimes I just kind of have to take a step back. So there's like a give and take relationship that I have that I really need to honor about myself. And when I do that, it gives me more energy and be more refreshed to come back into something new that is going to be of better service to my community or whomever is needing my presence or my energy. So self-compassion, your survival instincts were necessary to get you to where you are now, and this served its purpose. So if you're feeling this, your survival instincts are there because they are necessary for you to survive, to make it to the next level. And by having self compassion, you're really looking at, okay, yeah, you did all these things, you behaved this way. you did that in order to survive. Your instincts kicked in and maybe you weren't thinking properly. But now, because you've done that, that served its purpose and it's not necessarily a negative thing. These things are loving. So I've been called narcissistic a couple of times recently. And I was kind of shocked because one, there's this huge stigma behind it. So the stigma of narcissism is that it's completely negative, and that is not entirely true. There is, yeah, there is a part where if it's a prolonged narcissism, that it could be kind of perceived negatively, but there is also narcissism that is a method of self-preservation. So we don't want to be taken advantage of all of the time. We don't want to be hurting ourselves all the time. So that narcissistic behavior that can pop up may be a self-preservation part of you. So it could be this survival instinct of I'm going to say no. Yeah. Well, they said that I'm not a narcissist in a negative way. They said you're you're narcissistic, but it's not in a negative way. It's like you're doing it because you care about yourself. So I was like, "Oh no." Like I love to take Epsom salt baths. That's my thing. I love to do it. I have the best sleep because of it, and um, it's a survival mechanism for me to kind of pull back, give myself some self love, and then I can go out and be the awesome person that I'm meant to be. And so self-compassion is really just looking at who you were and not saying, "Oh, you're bad for doing this." It's like you did those things because we needed to survive to get to the next level. We needed to survive to get to this moment that we're in, and you're going to grow and become a better person hereafter. Okay, one of the other things that we're going to do to shift out of the scarcity mindset is to get grounded. This is really being present in yourself. So, one of the things that talked about how this affects your relationships is where you're present, but emotionally, you're not. And so, when you ground yourself, when you really kind of just step into your body, into who you are, and maybe men, this won't resonate very well, but for women, definitely, we can definitely be in our body. Yes, there is a big difference between narcissism and self-care, Barbara. And when this person, it was a man, explained it, I was like, "Oh, okay, it's not really narcissism. What you're talking about is I'm caring about myself enough. Like I have certain things that I like to do that just pull me back. I can relax and really drain some of those things." Yes. Barbara says, "I'm a better wife and mother because of self-care." And you learn this because you went through burnout. It's so crazy, right? At least I did. That was a big, like, revealer for sure. So getting grounded is being mindful through possibilities without limits, focus on learning, creating something new, meditation or prayer, observe your surroundings. So these are all activities that will help you kind of be grounded. One of the things I like to do is, she said, totally. So yeah, burnout will teach you these lessons for sure. One of the things that I like to do to kind of ground myself is to garden. So I like to go out into the yard when it's nice out, go out into the yard and I start to like pull things and I start to plant things and just see how it comes up the following year. One of the things I really enjoy is like now I have a relationship with one of my friends and I got to stay on her property last year. She has 30 acres. I got to put my RV there, and I got to help her with her garden. And so that was like a good way for me to kind of ground and just really relax from the heavy day to day stuff that I was doing. Um, from being unable to really relax my mind because my mind was always going like, if you're finding yourself like really over analyzing things and trying to come up with solutions for things. Like if you continue doing that, like our brains have so much capacity. So think about a computer. Your brain is like a computer, right? Talk about the heart being a computer, the brain is like being a computer. So if you're thinking, your prefrontal cortex has a certain amount of, what do they call it? CPUs or whatever. Is it CPUs? I don't know. I don't speak tech very well, so if I'm saying it wrong, I'm really sorry. But so, um, so your brain, your prefrontal cortex, the one that is problem solving, can only operate at a certain capacity. And so let's say like it's 30% capacity, and then if you're overthinking, it kind of dwindles down to the point of where you can't think anymore. You're unable to complete thoughts. You're unable to react to new situations because you're going through all these other things. It's like bringing that CPU percentage down. So hopefully that makes sense. That's where your thinking is all right here. So if you're overusing that and you're exhausting it, I'll tell you this, when I realized that I think I probably already told this story, but so um I was at my job, and for the first 6 years of this job, I was able to perform the tasks at hand. And I would learn something really well and then I'd get really good at it to where I didn't even really have to think about it. I can listen to podcasts and do my job simultaneously without even thinking about what I was doing at my job because it was like, okay, it's clockwork. Then I got a new job. Okay, I'm doing all those things. I'm learning all that. Now it comes clockwork. And then I come to another job, and then the other job is going to be a little bit more difficult. So I'm like going through all of the motions of this job. And then I get to a certain point of where I am like starting to fatigue, to burn out. I'm starting to go to urgent cares. My heart, I'm like monitoring it on a daily basis, and my doctor's trying to prescribe me water pills or whatever to like get my blood pressure down because it's so high. And this is all being around people that are stressed out because I do kind of take on in fact today I was a little yesterday and today I was a little anxious because of just work situations. There were some huge flare ups at work that were completely on the production side of it. And so there's a lot of, because it's machinery, we're having to sit there and try to figure out the responses. Not only that, I'm having to like go out and find all these other new things. And so I'm just like really overwhelmed. And I can feel myself getting really overwhelmed. And I can say, you know what? I'm anxious. Like right now, I feel anxious. And everyone's like, oh, don't feel that way. Just let it go. Let it go. And I'm like, it's okay for me to feel anxious, but it's not going to halt me. It's not going to stop me from being able to perform because I know that this anxiety that I'm experiencing is coming from this situation. I'm able to consciously look at the situation, look at the people that are stressed out, and say, that's their stress. That's the situation. It's not me. Maybe I have these other things that I have to deal with, but I can manage those things. But these other things are outside of me, it's separated from me. But I still feel anxious and I can identify where it's coming from. So now instead of having this anxious reaction, I'm having this conscious anxious reaction of, Oh, okay, I'm anxious because this, and I'm able to list it out, say what it is, experience the feeling. So we sit in it, right? It said to sit in it, validate that, accept it, and then let it go. That's not my problem. That's not something that I have anything to do with. And that is completely okay. So that is a great way of getting through those feelings of anxiety. Now it could be anger, it could be it could be envy, um, it could be any feeling that is uncomfortable for you, just to sit in it. Maybe you're feeling sad. I'm feeling really sad because nobody has come to visit me. And so you can sit in that, accept it for what it is. Oh, okay. I'm just going to let it go. It's not anything to do with me. It's just maybe people are busy. So you're kind of letting it go and saying that's not mine. I'm not accepting that. I'm not allowing that to take up capacity in my mind, and I'm not allowing it to take up my energies, because I have other things that I want to do, other things that I want to accomplish. So you're kind of developing that motivation to be better. Okay, a question you can ask: where is your abundance? Where is your gratitude? What are you grateful for? What things do you have in your life currently that are wonderful? Like, what has God provided for you today? So this is something that you can do through daily prayer. As you're sitting down for a meal, just being really grateful for, man, I'm super grateful that I have this meal right now. I am super grateful that I have a wonderful community of people that if I ever needed to talk to, I could talk to anybody, or I can at least talk to some of these people that would understand where I'm coming from, that will get why I'm feeling that way. So, other things are, we talked about time, money, and connection. So maybe you have a lot of time. Oh, you know what? I'm grateful that I have a lot of time. Maybe I don't have a lot of money, but I have a lot of time, and I can be grateful for that. And how am I going to use that time um, to the best of whatever the abundance is? So you have this abundance of time. Maybe I can learn a new skill. Maybe I can spend time traveling. Maybe I can do whatever it is that's going to make you feel abundant. So the next part of that is money. Um, and these are just some examples. The other example could be love. I have an abundance of love. I have an abundance of community. I have abundance of resources. I have um, wherever it is, wherever that gratitude is going to lie. um, you'll want to kind of focus your mind to shift you out of, I don't have relationships with people, into, I have a great community of people. So really shifting your mindset. And that's why I said it does take time. It's not something that you could just like think your way out of. It takes time for you to really sit and kind of train yourself in these skills of, okay, I'm going to learn, look at this different. I'm going to look at my job differently. So my job, maybe I feel like I'm stuck in it. Oh, okay, but you know what? Here's a way where I can find opportunity. Maybe if I go talk to the HR manager, maybe if I go talk to my manager and say, "Hey, look, I'm feeling a little bit stuck. I want to be able to grow. Here's some ideas that I have to grow. What do you think? If I purchase this course, do you think that the company would pay for it? I'd like to advance my skills in web design, marketing, negotiating, whatever it is. Like if you're in your job and you're feeling stuck, find something that is going to make you feel unstuck. Look at what you have available to you in that job. And if that's not the case and you're ready to find a new job, find somebody that's going to help you write your resume. Maybe somebody that's going to career coach you through, okay, here's where all of your value is. Here's where I see the value. Do you see that as well? So for me, sometimes I have a hard time seeing where my gift and talents are. And sometimes it's because maybe you have a lot of talents and you just don't see them the way that other people see them. So I love to talk. I love to facilitate training. I love doing that kind of stuff. And so that makes me feel fulfilled. People are learning things. There's people that are possibly going to level themselves up because they've come from this point and then they're going to make it to a new point. I find that like that's for me, that is me being fruitful and multiplying other people into getting out of what we're talking about right now, scarcity, what we're talking about last week, emotional intelligence. Maybe you don't understand what the pillars of those things are, and you just need to hear that and then look at, oh, okay, no, you know what? I have a lot of emotional intelligence. I'm feeling really confident in that. I'm very, very in tune with my feelings. For me, like a lot of the times I'm so much of a thinker that I'm not in, in touch with my feelings. Like my emotions are like, whatever. I'm like super into people telling me all this information, like podcasts, audiobooks, people telling me stories, me having conversations with people. When I hear these things, I feel like I'm in abundance. Oh man, they're teaching me something about whatever experiences they're going through. And man, that's really hitting home. It's resonating. It's making me think a different way about my life. That's awesome. So sometimes it does take you sitting in front of somebody and them asking you questions about yourself, almost an interview, really, an interview to really dial in like, here's where your value is, here's where your gifts are. Man, you're really good at that. I am really impressed with your experience that you're going to bring forward. Let's take this information, find the job that you want to apply to, and really apply yourself to how that job is going to be. That way, you're going to feel unstuck. Maybe you can go to your boss and say, hey, look, I'm really feeling like I haven't grown in this company. Are there any areas that I can grow in that you see are good opportunities for me? Yes, great. Let's explore that. No, okay, well, I've been applying and I got this job um, offer at this other company, making X a number of money. Um, I I'm thinking about taking that job, and so you take that job, and now you have new experiences, you have new motivation, you have new things to think about. So, and if you cannot, if you don't want to work, and you're able to find a way to do that, maybe you want to do like a side job or whatever, that's fine too. Like if you have the opportunity available to you, that's your abundance. Now you have all this time and maybe a little bit of resources to do something that you can do that will bring you joy. So, I had tons of time from the time that I quit my job until now that I started my job, I've got like a lot less time. But in between that, I was able to like I'm seeing some issues with seeds. Like, let's start a seed distribution platform for people. Let's show people how to save seeds. Let's have that be available to people for free. How do I make that happen? Well, I had a lot of time to do that. Now I have a lot less time to do that. But there's still people that are like, we're still supporting that. I still get seeds in. And so that is a beautiful way of showing being fruitful and multiplying. But then also, if you have time and you have a desired interest to really put that forward, people were very excited about that, especially when we were in a quarantine situation and they were shutting down garden sections of grocery stores. I don't know if Walmart is a grocery store, but that was a thing. Um, so let's like define abundance is my next one, and I just have one more after this. How does abundance feel? What does it look like in your life? Um, how does it show up? Where is the gratitude for the things that you do have? Because, like I said, we live in America. America is materialistic and very rich in this abundance of materialism. And I think just because we have all this material stuff, sometimes we do feel that scarcity that we're not having enough stuff, when in fact we have everything that we need. And if you're able to let it go, those material things, let those things go and be really comfortable with having very minimal things, you even feel more abundant because any little thing that comes in, you're like, wow, this is amazing. I'm so grateful for this. I'm so grateful to be able to have these opportunities. I love my life. Like I'm really sad that I spent so much time with the scarcity mindset and not even realizing what it was. I feel like I wasted a lot of my life with that. And so I really truly do hope that this is helping to heal people, um, so that they can see the abundance, see the gratitude, see the joy that comes from life. Because it's not just things that bring us joy. We can be very temporal beings, we can be very materialistic, especially in America. But just because we don't have everything that everyone else needs or has doesn't mean we're not abundant. So define what abundance looks like to you. Maybe it's having an RV on an acre that's paid for. I will tell you that that is enough. I'm getting chills. That is enough. You don't need a whole lot of stuff. I like this house. It's 3 bedroom, 2 bath, whatever. I love it. It's very roomy, very spacious. It doesn't have a big yard, but it has a little garden. It's enough. It's probably more than enough, but it's enough. For now, it's enough for me right now. Would I love to live in my RV long term? Absolutely. I think that would be great. It does come with, its own pros and cons of living that lifestyle, but it's enough for what I was doing. It was enough. I had a bed, I had a bathroom, I had, you have all these amenities. I had all the amenities. Everything worked. It was enough. 220 square feet, 2.5 people. I don't know if Huckleberry counts as a whole people, but it was enough. It was more than enough. In fact, when I moved into a bigger place, I almost felt really weird. I was like, wow, this is different. I'm not used to having all this space, like house space. Okay, finally, we're going to embrace gratitude. And embracing gratitude, it's what brings you joy, what brings you fulfillment into your life. What are these things? Um, is it your family? Is it your hobbies? Is it your service to others? What does that look like? Where is that coming from? And how do you bring in more? And so these are good tips on shifting out of that scarcity mindset and really reprogramming or like throwing out the old stories and putting in a new story of I don't lack. I have abundance. Um so really quickly I want to talk about like spiritually we feel inadequate. Um I had a friend that I had talked to, and he was in a relationship with a girl, and he's sitting there, and these are the kind of conversations that I have with men. They're very they're very open. I have a very motherly presence with people. So he's sitting here and he's just telling me like this is what's going on. And he's like, I really I really love this girl. I really care about her, but I'm afraid that I'm not enough. I'm afraid that I'm not worth it. Okay. And I was like, okay. And so I'm just letting him kind of like say these things out loud. Okay. It's okay to feel that way. But I told him, I was like, I just want you to know that you are enough, that you are loved, and that you were worth the sacrifice. You were worth the sacrifice of Jesus on the cross. You were worth it. So to think that you're unworthy of living your life when you had this really, really deep love situation from Jesus to lay down his life, to give you that salvation, you were worth it to him. So if you're sitting there and thinking that you're unworth it, You're not worth it. To sit there and think that is it's almost like a rejection of the cross for you to sit there and think that. And we all have that opportunity. We all have an abundant life. Jesus said, "I've come that you might have life and you might have it in abundance." What did he mean by that? Did he mean that you're gonna have a mansion here on earth? Maybe you might have that, and that's fine. Like, if you have that and that's something that you're able to care for and you're using that in abundance, then great. If you're being fruitful with what you've been given. So you've been given a seed from God, you've been given this gift from God. Are you using it appropriately? And you'll feel that in your soul. That's why people that have huge houses, I felt this in my old house. That's why I got rid of it. It was empty. It wasn't worth it for me to be in that house. I wasn't being fruitful in that house. None of the things that I had envisioned were coming to fruition. I wasn't being fruitful. I wasn't multiplying. I kind of was, but not to the degree that the property allowed. It could have been something. Barbara says, "Amen, Copper. That was a beautiful response." It's so true, though. It was so true. And, normally we would kind of bicker back and forth. That was kind of part of our relationship, but I was totally like not into it. I was like, you know what? I'm not going to feed into your insecurity today. I'm going to give it to you straight because this is what spirit is telling me. And it's true. And it's beautiful. And so, people are going to come at me. And, I really thank you guys last week. We had some people, they were some friends that I had that I had left a group of them. So it was a couple of them. And that was fine that they came into my saloon. And, but there's going to be people like that. So don't even feed them. It's their own insecurities that are causing them to act in that way. And so I really try to not react to people's negativity. I really try not to react in a way that it's going to feed what their response thoughts are because they're experiencing some whatever feelings or emotions. And it's going to happen. Jesus said that you're going to get attacked if you're going to be spreading this message. And they're not attacking you personally, they're attacking me in heaven. And it's okay. Like, I forgive them. I love them. Like, they're my friends. I love them. I just had to kind of go from um, I had to go from a do I stay in this relationship or do I leave that relationship? So, anyways, I think it really hit home with that person when I said that. I get chills on my body whenever I tell that story. So I know that it had something to do with a truth there. There's a truth there. And um, this is something that men and women experience this scarcity. Men and women will experience it. But there's so many promises. Like I said earlier, I was talking about Psalm 23, and that's that as I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. God is protecting me. He's comforting me. And in him, like, I'm cared for. I'm a child in his arms. The other thing, and I'll probably do another stream, um, is just when you're looking at the scarcity, is like think about yourself as a child. So I like to think of myself like all the time. I think of myself as a child when I'm trying to work through these emotions. I try to think of myself as a child. Even though I'm almost 40, thinking of myself as a child because we're supposed to come to him as children. So I try to like foster as much of that childlike exuberance that I had when I was younger. And maybe I wasn't as loud and as expressive as I am nowadays because nowadays I'm just really comfortable with like, okay, people may judge me, but I'm not judging myself right now. So I'm going to be who I am. Um, do you guys have any questions in the chat? I know we have some people in here. Um, I kind of talked a little bit about the narcissist, and I think it's kind of like people call people narcissists to give them this like negative stigma, name calling insults. But just because somebody is taking care of themselves doesn't make them a narcissist. Self care is so important for you to heal yourself. And, you know, like I said, we talked about some of the things that you should be doing is create something new or create something beautiful to focus your energy into. Learn something new. So right now, I'm learning something new. I'm learning how to do YouTube podcasts, and then I'm going to learn how to multi-stream, and then I'm going to learn how to make my own website, do web design. So these things that I'm doing, I'm learning something new because I want to push myself into to new experiences where it will maybe pull up something that I need to address. And so that's part of that kind of growth area. And really gratitude is probably one of the core things. I shared a I don't know if you guys are finding me on IG or Facebook. I shared it on both, but um I had shared something about finding that innocence, and I think this kind of goes into that child, because that child was I don't want to say spoiled, like as in given too much, but spoiled from being a child and growing up too fast. And I think a lot of us experience that growing up too fast and we don't get to truly properly be a child. So I try to like foster this in my son now. He's 10 and he acts so adult like. And I'm like, you're so serious. Like, be a child, you know, enjoy your childhood. Like enjoy the things that you get to have. Like look at the abundance of time that you get. You get to have fun. Yeah, you have to go to school, but you don't have a lot of responsibilities outside of that. And so, really enjoy some of those aspects of being a child before you're having to go into adulthood because there's a lot of responsibilities that go into adulthood. And so I try to really help him to see his childlike self and really appreciate his childlike self, even though he is pretty serious. I was kind of like that as a kid, though. I was super serious. I was like, nope, it has to be this way. It has to be perfect. If it's not, within this thing, it's out of it's not perfect, and um, so it's not right. So we have to do it so that it's right. So a lot of the skills that I learned is because I had this perfectionist mindset, which is a scarcity mindset. We talked about that being dissatisfied, um, or having that high standard, which is not a bad thing to have integrity, to care about your work, to care about whatever, but to have this dissatisfaction with the way things are and to think, man, I can't sit down and relax without these things getting done. I can't sit down and relax if the sink's full of dishes. I can't sit down and relax if, I get back from traveling and I have a bunch of stuff in my car. I just can't relax, even though I might need to. My mind might feel to. Real was always serious. Nothing wrong with that. He's still like climbing trees. Yeah. They're good children. Like I was, talking with my coworker today. I was like, man, you know, my child is so serious. She's like, yeah, my daughter is the same way. They're both the same age. My daughter's the same way. And I was like, yeah, like, what is it with kids? Like, they have to be so serious. Like, was I like that? Maybe I was. Maybe I was. Um, so yeah, we've been going about an hour 20. So it's a little bit shorter than last week. But if anybody has any like questions, I really encourage if you're re-listening to this to put stuff in the chat. If things move you or you're wanting to kind of express some of those things, sometimes it's nice to get out. Um, of your mind and onto paper and just really say it or paper, but just in a comment. If you have to journal, I would recommend journaling. That's a great way to get some of the stuff out. I used to journal all the time when I was younger, and now that I've gone to college as an adult, I'm like, I have like the worst concentration. I can't read books. I have to listen to stuff, and I listen to a lot of things, but I have to listen to things, audiobooks and podcasts and stuff like that. It's the only way that I can actually, unless I'm having like a face-to-face conversation with somebody, it's the only way that I'm gonna actually like retain information because I can't sit down and even read picture books sometimes. Like I'll look at recipes and I'll be like, oh, okay, I kind of get the idea. And I'll just like go along and make it. And then I'll look at the the instructions and I'm like, oh, I didn't read the instructions. I shouldn't have done that. Like skip this step altogether. So um but I'm confident enough in my cooking skills that it's not like a terrible mistake. So yeah, um, I do want to share this post because I think I should really break it down. There was some disagreement, and I do want to address it. So hopefully that's okay with you guys. Um, and this is from, sometimes I can't understand what her message is, but this one really spoke to me about scarcity because this is how it shows up in your relationships where you're physically present, but you're not emotionally present. And this is not a jab at men. This can relate to men and women, and it does. It's an emotional lack of it's a lack or an inadequacy that kind of shows up in your relationships. So you'll find that if you're in a relationship and you feel dissatisfied after a certain period of time, um, you're gonna you're like I think a lot of people experience this because they're not addressing some of these scarcity issues. So I do want to talk about it. It was a little contentious, and I just want to preface this by saying I'm not sitting here on my high horse saying that I'm like better than anybody else because I'm definitely not. I've I've already confessed to you guys that I am definitely like I definitely exhibit like a lot of these things. I can relate to so many of these symptoms of scarcity, and just coming to acknowledge it and really address it in a healthy, conscious way is really helpful for me. And I really hope that's helpful for you. This is a moment of healing. This is not an attack on men. It is not an attack on masculinity. I absolutely love men. I want them to be masculine, but I also desire when a man is masculine to be emotionally in control of his, I should say, desire him to be in control of his emotions. So if a man is going to come up to me because of something that I'm saying and yell at me and be angry with me, it's like we talked about that earlier of that feeling of guilt or anger or envy, whatever those feelings are, like they will pop up. And so anyhow, so this was says to men disconnected from your own inner female, and this is the inner female, uh, as I understand it, is like my inner masculine or my inner male, which is my relationship that I had with men in my life. And so mine was very disconnected. I did not have a male role model growing up, and that's fact. And I had to do a lot of work to resolve some of the issues that came up with that. But so Avatara Ananda says to men disconnected from your own inner female, for as long as you avoid facing the inner void, which we talked about this is a scarcity, this inner scarcity where you could be a hoarder, you could eat a lot of food, you could drink, you could use drugs, like you could use women or men or whatever it is. You can overwork. Like all of these things are trying to fill a void that you have, this inadequacy, which I think is a very deep spiritual lack of connection to um, our, our Abba Father in heaven. So you're facing the inner void. You'll manipulate yourself or you'll tell yourself stories to justify siphoning women who genuinely love you because you don't love yourself and you don't know what that love even is. So you can't identify it and you can't express it. This is love is an emotion. It comes from the heart. And I don't know if anybody's going to disagree with that, but you may or may not, because you do not love yourself and you do not know what that love even is. And draining yourself into women who are only with you for what you have to give them because your artificial identity is validated by proving itself. So these women will come around, and it's not necessarily that they're not in lack. Maybe they are in lack. There is something there that you guys are feeding each other, um, but it's not a healthy, conscious experience. So you can only love another when you learn to love the innocence within yourself and be its guardian. And I talked about that. That's that child that's in you. Um, so that child, if you're growing up in poverty and you experience like, oh, we don't have food. I've talked to many people. I'm funny enough, when I was pregnant, that's when I experienced like a lack of food situation, and that just geared me into like learning how to can, learning how to cook my own bread, like really stretching a food budget. Um, these things will be kind of a catalyst to that. So many of you are driven by lust, distorted romance that feeds your artificial identity, mother trauma that makes you chase women who remind you of your mom, worldly success, worldly praise, etc., and all of empty, and all of it is empty of true loving light. These things that we chase in the world, the materialism that we have, will make us chase. Um, it will make us continue to chase because we're not being fulfilled. Most of you cannot face how you siphoned living plastic substance from women who sincerely and genuinely cared about you. That's where gaslighting and story twisting comes from, an inability to recognize theft and taking advantage of someone who believed in you and trusted you. And I would argue that for women that are with men that are like this, they're also a state of lack. And I speak from experience. So um, these things do come up and you will experience them if you are in a position of lack and you're not conscious of what's going on. You don't love anyone. You're addicted to connecting with others, to feel something, to source living codes and get inspired to create whatever it is you're creating. So you'll go around and you'll use people. You won't view them as a co-creators. You're going to view them as competitors. You're going to use them as objects, people that aren't going to um, be fulfilled in that long term. It's just not going to be fulfilling. Um, all this worldly stuff is empty. The only innocent love is real. If you keep avoiding your facing yourself, don't worry, we are facing ourselves too. All you'll do is rob yourself of the opportunity to return to innocence, which is the only true freedom, which is like exactly what Jesus said, like be as children. If you want to go to heaven, like become children, be like these little children. Don't tell them not to come to me. And so I really like sit back and I'm like, man, I am a child. I am a child and I am loved by my father. And that's a story of lack that I have to reconnect. And I think this is a great position for men. For women, it's the same thing. And, I'm almost on the opposite of this. I was one of those women who was being siphoned off of, and I would just sacrifice myself to it. I didn't care about myself enough to truly be loved by somebody because I was running away from my emotions. I was physically present and I wasn't emotionally available. And so that, because I'm honest about that, that I can look at that and say, okay, that's true. That is true. So, um, and I don't want people to go through that. And if they do go through that, then I mean, it's not like it's the end of the world, but to not give them a hope or a way out or love, like have them experience love, because that is the strongest technology that we have is love. The strongest. That's why it's a commandment. Love your neighbor as yourself. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And um, we can't heal if we're not going to be honest about these things. And it does take healing to be able to see things in abundance, to see things in gratitude. It takes healing. So, well, um, it's been a long night. It's been a long day for me. I appreciate you guys coming on and talking with me. And, just a final thing that I'll say about the scarcity is God wants to give us providence. He wants to give us abundance. He wants us to be a part of that kingdom. And it's, really up to us to like be present and aware of those things and to honor what He's given us. And I truly, wholly believe that wherever we're going to go beyond this, um, these things won't even like they'll matter, but they won't even matter anymore. It's we're going to be fed with something that's not food. We don't have a lack. Like spiritually, if we're not eating the manna from heaven, and in the temporal realm, we're not getting food from, wherever, then yeah, we're going to experience that lack. But it's when we connect to that that we start to have this abundance, this fulfillment, this manna from heaven that we will feel whole and fulfilled and fed. So, all right, don't howl at the moon. It's not necessary. I will be back on next Thursday, Lord willing, and we'll have another topic. And I really, truly hope this was edifying for you. It sounds like Barbara, it was edifying for you. Thank you for sharing some of your experiences, and um, yeah, I'm really glad you shared that about burnout because that does. We get there because we think we have to continue going, otherwise we're going to lose something, our job, our house, our whatever it is. But it's like, is it really worth it? And that's kind of what you have to do in those situations. So, all right. Well, you guys have watched the Radical Souls podcast, and I will return next Thursday. And so I will see you guys then. I hope you have a wonderful weekend and a wonderful week. Take care, and I will see you guys later. Bye.